Welcome back to Rasing the Glass, The Tipple, our short serving of podcast on the side. You asked for more content and we're bringing it to you. And this week I am delighted to introduce you to Sally Evans. Sally is a force to be reckoned with, having gone through a transformational change in her career to not only buy a chateau in France, but actually start producing wine. So, Sally, tell us a little bit about Chateau Georges VII.
Hi, well, thank you for having me and delighted to be here. So, I had a corporate career, and when I got to my late 40s, I realized I hadn't spent a lot of time with my younger son. I'd gone back to work when he was only 2 months old into that corporate job and really wanted to spend a bit of time with him. So, I gave up that job. Looked after him. I was around, you know what those teenagers are like. It's quite good to be around them in those mid-teen years. And I then, as I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, as he was about to head to university in the September, October, and the springtime, I started thinking, well, what am I going to do next? And actually, what I did was really just started studying wine because it was something I'd always meant to do. I was already living in France. I was living near Nice in the southeast of France and thinking about what would be next, my next adventure, my next chapter. I was a single mum, so I really did feel that I'm going to be an empty nester. I can do what I want. And to get my brain engaged, I'm going to study wine. And one thing led to another. And within a year, I had bought a plot of vines and some dilapidated buildings 8 hours drive away in Bordeaux.
Which, when you say it like that, is not what everybody does. No, certainly not everybody's saying, I'm going to start out and buy a chateau and buy some vineyards. But it was an amazing part of your journey that you went on. And we've spoken before, and you talk a lot about resilience. And you talk about learning some of that earlier on to be able to equip you to do things like this.
Well, I think that as we, every year that goes by, things happen to us and we learn to be resilient. And when I was looking at this project, I was in my early 50s. So I was 52 when I started studying wine. So I had been through stuff. And we have by that age, we've been through personal stuff and professionally too. And we do have a lot of resilience and creativity because we've had to learn to do things, turn things around quickly. And so I think that what we tend to do is underestimate what we can do. And I think women tend to, perhaps maybe, more than men, but certainly women in their 50s really should not underestimate all the different skills that you've gathered right from those early jobs, in your teens, right through those careers, or looking after a family or juggling both, and the different changes and things that we've managed all through those years. And we can actually do a lot of stuff. And then we can apply that to a whole new chapter and a whole new world, which is what I did.
I think it's a really interesting thing. So the tipple's about hints and tips, and there is definitely something there. I think we're really good at saying, I'm really good in this space here because I've learnt this, and I'm really good at this here. But actually being able to blend it all and see your total life experiences. What is it about a job or your family, or as you say, those moments of I've got to be really creative in this moment really quickly that you can apply to other elements? I think sometimes we can get a little bit better maybe at trying to pull on those different strings.
Yes, I think that we do need to spend time and reflect. I certainly did. I sat down and, big piece of paper and said, okay, what do I know how to do? So clearly the skills I'd learned from my corporate job, but also from my personal life. I had worked in hospitality when I was younger. We had run a pub in the Cotswolds. Therefore, builds you a whole host of skills when you work in hospitality and understanding about handling customers in that kind of environment, through to the corporate environment, dealing with people, processes, marketing was my profession and so forth. But also I think it's really important to look at what you don't know and accept what you don't know. I didn't have deep skills around making wine. I was doing the WSET, the Wine and Spirit Education Trust wine courses. I went right up to the diploma. I started the diploma the day or the month that I bought the land here, the vines, but it certainly didn't equip me with knowledge of how to make a successful vintage. And therefore, something else that we learn in corporate life is know when to ask for help, know what you don't know how to do, and get those skills in. And so I sat down and thought, okay, what I really don't know, which I know sounds a bit odd when you're about to start making wine, is I don't know how to make wine. So I don't have that deep knowledge of vintages, the terroir, and all that goes on, the microclimates around the region of Bordeaux. And as luck would have it, Bordeaux is filled with experts who have all that knowledge and are very happy to share that with somebody who's coming in from the outside. So I filled the gaps with what I didn't know with experts, as you would any other business. That's how I approached it.
And I think that's really interesting because there is a vulnerability, I suppose, in some way, because you were able to upskill yourself, and you've said before that people were willing to share all their knowledge with you. But then you still said there are certain elements where there will be people better than me in this space, and for me to produce the best wine that I can produce, I'll want to work with them. And you actually brought consultants in for that upskilling. To your point, as you say, just like you would in any other business.
That's right. And I was moving to an area where there were those deep skills, and found people who not only had that knowledge, but also really treated me as an equal. How, for me, this was a really important adventure in my late 50s, and therefore that relationship with those people was not just about a transaction of paying for skill. It was about how we're going to work together, how much fun we're going to have together. And in fact, one of the consultants, he works for lots of different chateaus, and on bottling day or on harvest day, when I have lots of friends and family coming to help with all those activities, he's always there all day. And he says, you know why I like coming here? Because it's so much fun to be here. I turn up some chateaus and it's so miserable and everyone's so complaining, but I come here and it's such a brilliant atmosphere, and there's always a good lunch as well. So they just want to be part of that. And of course, that was my desire. I wanted to have fun with this. If I'm not going to enjoy it, why would I do it?
But how fantastic that you wanting to have and your authentic personality is coming through in people's touch points with you and people's experiences with you, because that is you in a bottle sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, and this was always, as I say to everyone, it was a semi-retirement project, but it's more hard work than quite a lot of the jobs that I've had, so semi-retirement. And I'm 63 now, and I'm still full of energy, just still full of new ideas of what I can do next year. We're having meetings this morning around grafting some, different and new grape variety and doing new stuff. But I made this chapter to be what I wanted it to be. It was very important for me that although I was going to be going into a new area where I had lots to learn, that was actually part of the draw. It was an intellectual engagement. We need to keep our brains active, and how better, I didn't want to sit and do puzzles. How better to do it than to actually be engaged in a fantastic activity, in terms of marketing the wines, thinking about what I want to sell, how to manage all of that. So I wanted intellectual engagement, I wanted diversity, and wine is just fabulous because it's everything from science and nature to art and business and marketing and hospitality. It's got everything. So this was a really all-round adventure for me.
And so you listen to you talking about this adventure, and it's probably fair to say the first year of your wine production was 2017, where there was a drought. So your first production ended up being 2018, which was a great year. But for Chateau Georges Set, a particularly great year because your first production was rated phenomenally.
Yes, 2017, it was actually frost that killed off most of the fruits in 2017, which was the year I was going to start. But like most things, it has a silver lining. And the silver lining was the few grapes that we had, we tested by fermenting in 500-litre French oak barrels, which is how I make my top red wine now. And so we tested the concept with just a little bit of outlay for a couple of barrels, which I put a tarpaulin over the top and some heaters underneath. That's how I made my first wine in
Wow.
2017. So 2018, yes, I equipped the winery, but I only have 3 hectares, which is about 7.5 acres. And I started with 2. So again, lower the risk in terms of financial investment until I know that the wine is okay. And 2018 was a fabulous year. I cannot take any credit for the weather that year. That was amazing. And as people probably know, we cannot irrigate, so we take what the weather we are given. And 18 was amazing. So it went out for tasting on Primeur, and Lisa Perotti Brown from the Wine Advocate gave it a great score. And it went on, so it started with a 91, and then it went on to get 94 at the Decanter World Wine Awards. So that was a combination of my courage, I guess, the
Mm-hmm.
weather, which was amazing, the fabulous advice that I'd been given as to how to make the wines, and my checkbook to actually buy those barrels. So combination, and it was a winning one.
And you talk then about your courage, which is so amazing to hear, because when we've spoken before, we talk about self-deprecating, but that bravery, and you listen to your story, and it has got to be rooted in bravery, because you gave up the corporate world, which has a degree of security to a certain extent. You bought the chateau, you acquired the wine, the vines, you started. There's all these elements along the way that feel really, really brave.
Well, you say that, and now I'm going to say, well, yeah, but I'm not saving lives in a war zone. I'm making a bit of wine in Bordeaux, and so the bravery, it does come across. It could be seen as madness as well, but I think that really important is that listening to that sounds like I know I'm happy to take risks. I am not at all. I am totally
Mhm.
risk averse, and I think that's a really important point here. That as you go out and do whatever adventure you are hoping to do, then you have to do it at the pace and at the level of risk that makes you feel happy. Now, I bought the land and the dilapidated buildings. It was not some gorgeous chateau. It was an old house that was run down, a tractor barn, and a winery that had no equipment, had never made wine. And I decided to renovate the house. And then, if I really decided not to go any further with this adventure, because I didn't like Bordeaux, because I knew nobody when I went there. So if I decided I didn't like it, or I just didn't want to go there, something else happened in my life, I could just resell the house or the whole property and get the money back that I'd spent on the renovation. Job done. And each stage that I've been at, I have decided to have a backup plan, or to actually only take the next step when I was very happy with where I was. And that was very, very important to me, not to put myself at any risk financially or emotionally. I wanted to enjoy this. And I wanted it to be according to my tune. I wanted to dance to my tune, not to what everyone else thought that I should be doing, or buying, or whatever. People are always full of plenty of advice, but it's not them doing it. So I think that is an advantage of age, where you know your limits and
Mhm.
accept them, and that's fine. And so I have a very small vineyard. We like to say boutique in the business,
Love it.
boutique winery, with a total production now of about 18,000 bottles, which sounds a lot, which is plenty, quite honestly, to sell. But I did it very much step by step and at my own pace. So that I never woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking, my God, what am I going to do with all that wine? How am I going to sell it? It's all rubbish. What am I going to do with it? And as we know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, it always feels worse. So,
Yeah.
I really wanted it to be low risk and full of joy.
And so what we're talking about here is calculated risks, and they're okay. Calculated risks are okay if you've done that balancing act, and you're I suppose walking into it eyes wide open. And on balance, look at what you've achieved, and what an amazing life. And just talking to you, you feel the energy and the excitement. um but you have said to me, it's great, but it's not all sunshine. How do you get through those moments?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any business, any project. There are moments where you think, what the have I done?
Hmm.
People say that to me and they say, do you ever think that? I said, yeah, every day at some point I'm thinking, but, and especially a woman on my own. I've done it on my own. I didn't have a partner, and no one to fall back on if anything went wrong. So I had to be super careful about that. But yes, things go wrong. So, in 2024, on the 18th of June, I lost all my crop to hail. It came through in 20 minutes and destroyed the crop, most of the crop.
Hmm.
So I got a tiny bit of wine. As it happened, 24 turned out to be not a great vintage. So, as my enologist said, this is a good year not to have a lot of wine. So, again, there's often a silver lining to it. But no, I live in the middle of the vines in the winter. People come here and say it's bucolic. People this morning were absolutely ecstatic about the beautiful sun over the vines. They were sitting on the terrace, they were tasting my wines, and I said, yeah, but you want to sit here when the rain is coming across horizontally in the middle of winter. It's not quite so much fun then. And I'm here on my own, and I'm obviously getting my enthusiasm up every day. So yes, it's like any thing in life. You make it. I mean, I make it to be the enjoyment that I want it to be. But there are obviously moments where things go bottoms up, and you have to deal with it like in the rest of life.
I think that's really important, isn't it? Because when you're in that moment, it feels like you're the only one, and it can feel almost worse in some ways. But you're right in your description that, like in anything in life, challenges come our way, and resilience is how we deal with it. And resilience can be learned over time. So, when you're having these experiences of it's not all sunshine and rainbows, actually you're learning from that and just getting a little bit better at dealing with it every time.
And yes, we have done. I mean, now I'm in my 60s, and I've had a lot of stuff that's over, as everyone, that you deal with through life, and that you just build stronger and realize those things don't last, or you find a way around it. The wonderful thing about this being my project, and I have complete autonomy from morning till night, weeks on end, what I do, then it's my choice. And so I'm not I don't feel trapped to someone else's vision, which is a wonderful thing to do at my age. But yes, we've built up so much resilience, and we're capable of so much, and yet we don't give ourselves enough credit for that.
And I think that's where things like low self-belief or imposter syndrome come in, because you're right, we've built up all of this resilience and we've had all of these experiences, but there's something in us that doesn't necessarily reconcile with that. um, and you said earlier, in those moments, you rely on yourself to lift yourself back up and out of those moments. But you also do that at a much bigger industry level as well, don't you? Because you are so passionate about mentoring.
Absolutely. I think that comes from the fact that I wish that I'd had me to talk to before I launched into this. And I know that a lot of people are fascinated by the wine industry. I know that a lot of people feel, wouldn't it be lovely one day to have a little vineyard and make a little bit of wine and so on. And it would have been great to have had someone to talk to. And within my corporate job, mentoring, coaching people, developing people was a very important part of the structure of my job. And I love that. So it seemed absolutely normal that when I got chatting to people right at the beginning, and they said, "Oh, I wish I would like to do this," and I said, "Well, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Show me your spreadsheet. Let's go through the numbers." And so that kind of grew, and I have a few people now that I do speak to on a regular basis who've become friends. And why not pass it on?
I think that pass it on is so important. And I'm delighted to let the audience know that you have signed up to our Raising the Glass mentoring platform. And I know you'll just be so important to so many people in that community. So let's talk about communities, because they can define us. They can be our support networks. They can be the people that help pick us up. You said earlier around you, people have opinions, and it's important that we surround ourselves with the opinions that matter. But how was it for you moving to somewhere you didn't know, doing something that you hadn't done before, trying to find a community, because you had quite a unique approach in terms of building that community for yourself, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I knew nobody in Bordeaux. I had just knew the estate agent who had shown me this property, and so I knew that I had to make connections. So I had marketing experience. That was my corporate job, was marketing, and so I did reach out to the appellation and say, "Can I help you with some marketing?" They didn't have a website in English at the time. It's a Fransac appellation, and they didn't have on the right bank, so they didn't have a website in English. And I said, well, maybe I could help you with that for starters, and also with general sort of talking about marketing and so forth. But I think that's the same wherever you go. You can't expect everyone else to reach out to you. So you need to reach out to people. I think it was really important that I already spoke French.
Hmm.
So I showed that I was serious about being part of France, and I was not some fly by night that didn't want to speak French and didn't want to be integrated. So I was well integrated into French culture, as it was, and so I really felt I would go and help my neighbours with their winemaking. I volunteered before I decided to make wine, because it took a couple of years before me I decided to actually dive in myself, and I let the previous owner continue to work the vines for free. So I helped him in the winery. I helped other neighbors. I kept my mouth shut. I kept my ears and eyes open. I chatted to everyone. I asked lots of questions, and everyone was more than happy to share the highs, the lows, lots of pearls of wisdom. And with that, and combining that with reaching out to the appellation, I slowly built a community. I also reached out to the Bordeaux Wine School because with my diploma, I became accredited as a Bordeaux tutor. So I actually do run Bordeaux classes, and that gave me opening to another group of people. And over time, I have built the best network of women, of supportive cheerleaders, and shoulders to cry on that I have ever had in any time in my life. And that's through the wine industry, through tourism, teaching, wine writers, and so forth. So it's been amazing. I've got the most amazing community of women around me.
And I think that that community, when it is supporting, and I like actually that you talk there about shoulders to cry on as well. That you don't have to mask, you don't have to pretend everything's okay. It's just it's real, it's raw, it's meeting you where you are, um, and it's supporting and embracing everything you stand for and everything everybody else stands for. None of the queen bee, just we're all raising together, and that's the beauty of communities like that and raising the glass. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Just lift everybody a little bit.
Yeah, no, and that has definitely been the case in around Bordeaux in the wine industry, which was an extra plus. I never expected it, and it's been amazing.
You have loads of amazing stories, loads of award-winning wines, lots of experience to draw on, and genuinely, I get a real buzz when I spend time with you, Sally, because you're just so energetic. Um, but it would be remiss not for me to ask you to tell one of my favorite stories, which brings us back to earth, I think, probably with the most storytelling descriptive bump of no matter how brilliant you are and how amazing you are, sometimes we've still got a long way to go. So, what happens when people try to deliver to your vineyard?
Yeah, so I get lorries coming to either pick up wine or to deliver various things, and I know exactly how they have to drive in and how they turn and so forth in my car park and towards the vine so that they can do it properly. But of course, will any lorry driver want to listen to me? Because clearly I wouldn't know how to maneuver his truck. So most recently, a lorry came in February to pick up some wine. It had been raining, and he came in and he wouldn't listen to me, so he got absolutely stuck in the mud, and wouldn't accept that. Obviously, what I told him was the right thing to do, and then asked me to try and help him get it out. And I said, well, I don't have a tractor because I outsource my tractor work. So I just let him walk up the lane to the next farmer and ask him to bring his tractor to drag him out. So he was not pleased, but if he'd listened to me, it would have been fine. But there we go.
If only they'd listened. Like I say, there is no more better description than that of sometimes people are a little bit stuck in the mud, and we should all channel our inner Sally and just sit down with a cup of tea and a sweet smile as we watch them traipse up the lane to try to get their lorry
Exactly.
pulled out of the mud.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
Sally, I always knew this was going to be a brilliant conversation. As I say, you said at the beginning, you are a formidable force to be reckoned with, not only in the industry, for everything you've done in your corporate career, but also just how authentic and kind and compassionate you are. It's
Oh.
just a buzz to spend time with you. The good news is, for anybody who's loved listening to you, we do have you coming back on another episode of The Tipple soon, where we'll be getting a bit more into sustainability. I know that's something that's close to your heart, but I know you will have created connections in people's ears and people who have watched this podcast. So for anybody who wants to reach out, how can they get in contact with you?
Through any means, any of the normal means. So they can go to my website, which is www.chateaugeorges7, so George with a number 7.com. Same for Instagram, can DM me. And if not, just simply sally@chateaugeorges7.com. Or I also have another website, which is sallyevans.co.uk. So that is all about midlife and midlife change. So they can go onto that one if they're interested too.
We will be doing a little bit of a crossover, so keep an eye out for our beverage bulletins, because Sally will be guest compiling one of those for us, with a little bit of a focus on filling your own glass up. When you spend a lot of time filling other people's glasses up, how do we learn to fill our own glass up, which I think is something that will resonate with a lot of people listening to this today. Until that comes out, though, lots of ways to get into contact with us and lots more conversations to be having about supporting ourselves and each other. But for now, all that's left to do is to thank Sally immensely for joining us all the way from France. Thank you very much for joining us on The Tipple, Sally.
Oh, thank you. It's been a huge pleasure. Thank you.
That's us all wrapped up. If you've liked what you've heard today, as always, like, subscribe, share the love, and we will be back in your ears soon.